Hello, hello, hello. Okay, so welcome to part two. So now we're going to try to get those two forms together. And we ended part one with just coiling up on the outside only, not all the way around, and then cutting the inside. So we took the angle of the top ring from here to there. From here to there. So now we should be able to bring them back together much easier. It'll come like this. I go on the inside ring over here, right on top there. Very inside ring here, inside ring there. Top, just straight on the top there and there. Straight on the top, inside over there. So as you notice, like in some places, like look at this little gap I have here. Is that a big deal? No, just grab a little clay. I mean, you don't have to get crazy about some things because you just score and smear things anyway. Just fill it with some clay. And as you see, it's starting to come over here away from this piece. So maybe I'll just go ahead and just add a little bit of clay, just that one side where I want it to go. Like I did before, where I only did it on one side. It's going to do it right here. Okay. So now I'm going to score that. But first, I think I'll just go ahead and take a coil and inside rim here. See, this is almost touching already. Side here. Trap down. Putting on the outside over here, straight on top there. Straight on top there. Inside in here a little bit. And you see, ba-bam, touching, so it's coming back together. And right here where it's coming back together, you see there's a little gap right here. Maybe I'll just fill this with a little bit of clay. Okay, just gonna fill that. Take a little bit of clay, put it right in there. Even take a little extra, right where they come together underneath, right here, and just push it up into there, okay? So now I'll just take my needle tool, or you can take the spear tool that you have at home, and score all this together, okay? So I'm going to score all this everywhere together, and I'll be right back. So I'm turning the camera back on for just some of the last parts where I'm smearing this. Right where this is coming back together, you just want to make sure that you really do an amazing job with connecting it. And of course, keep in mind that if anything's going to happen, this is going to break apart right here and here because of the weight of this clay. Put supports in if you need to, or else hit it with a hair dryer if it's just too wet. You got to be watching the moisture levels around the clay. If you're putting any water on this at all instead of slip in certain places, well, because of course I'm not using slip or water at all for any of these. I only did that on the bottom base here with the first coil, and I did it with the second base here with the first coils I put on. That's the only place I put slip or water. All the rest I just score down and then smear with my knife. Where they come together, though, you want to be really careful that you're going to connect this well. I come in here and I score a lot. These two places where they come together. Maybe add a little bit more clay right around here. Wherever you add clay, scratch it in and smear it in. Okay. Now again, as you're moving up, you can just take your fingers and make this a lot cleaner than I have mine now. Okay, I'm trying to go quick for the demo, but that could be a lot cleaner. Okay, so now I want to try to even out the forms. I want to try to get it to be like one consistent height. So I'm just going to go ahead and just add coils to only the places where it's a little bit lower. And that is here. I don't have to worry about the middle so much. Right here. Now it's coming together, so this is going to come across right to here. So as you see, like this. hole there. I'll just put a little bit of clay. And we'll start off with a little bit of a little coil there. And then maybe one right here. Now check it out, people. This is, oh, my little supports. It didn't fall down. Thank whoever you want to thank for that. All right, so now it's a continual, it's level like this. I just rip the coils where I want. Remember, you have control. You're the craftsman here. So you have control where you want to put them. You don't always have to put them all the way around. You are manipulating, and this is the exact objective of this assignment, is that you start to understand how you can manipulate forms and how you build up and get it to go exactly to where you want it to be by using coils. And so remember, what's the purpose of doing this? The purpose of doing this is that anytime in ceramics when you're building something, it cannot be too thick or else you cannot fire it. It will explode. We are building this structure completely hollow, so it is able to be fired. It's none of this clay is too thick. Okay, the first project where you did pinch, all you did is you just pulled it apart, and now you're just building it up by just using coil technique, and you are controlling every little minuscule aspect of it as you go by just deciding where you're going to put the coil. That's all I want you to practice thinking about as you're constructing it. Okay? So now I go ahead and just start building the top part where it comes together. Let me pause and roll a couple more coils. Alright, I have another coil here. Maybe I'll have a little bit of movement up on top. That might be nice, right? So maybe this is on the inside over here, the outside over here. One last demonstration to your instructor and to all the viewers of your amazing work that you know what you're doing with these coils. Inside over here, maybe a little bit more thickness. Now remember, these top coils can be thinner. These can be about the thickness of a pencil. All right? You're getting thinner as you go up. Now you can be as thin as a pencil. You couldn't at the very bottom. Thinner as you go up, because it's going to be less weight. This doesn't have to support any weight, so it doesn't have to be thick, and it's also going to be less weight for what's going on down here, so that'll be good. So I can just end this whole thing now. I've demonstrated this. I have these forms. I'm just going to go around and score, and then use my knife and smear after I score all of the clay. You got to be careful as you go. Go careful. Remember, support on the inside as you move right here. Okay. All right. I'm going to pause again. Okay. Check it out. From the drawing, I have completed the rough cut, all right, of my sculpture right here. Now, of course, I have a lot of smoothing out to do, but did I show the movement? Yes, it moves out. There's a big wide opening here. You do not have them going. This is a huge one. So many people do this. You got to make sure that you have it coming out and back in again. Big wide opening in the middle. Coming out and joining it together. This demonstrates a lot to me that you understand these basic principles of being able to separate the forms, understanding how to control their movement, and remember the whole little trick and how to put them only on one side and then cut the other side to control like the angle from going like this to then back like this. That's huge. If you're not sure, again, from just watching it once in the video, go back and look at it multiple times. Practice it while you're watching it. So on the very top, I can see down into the opening. So this is another area where you will want to smooth this as well. Okay, anywhere where you can see, the viewer can see it, you'll want to smooth it. Let's hide the aspects of the coils on the very top. Okay, just do that. So at this point, because you're going to start your textures is the next part, and you before you do that, you want to smooth this all out. You can use a knife, your fingers, what have you. You just got to be very careful. This thing gets too wet, it is going to fall apart. And if it breaks in certain places, yes, you can go ahead. Whenever the clay is not dry, you can reattach it. You just take your needle tool, or if you have your spear tool, just scratch like crazy in between and along the outside surface. Let's say this broke right here. You can scratch like crazy. Just stick it back together and scratch like crazy, and then rub some new clay from the side into the marks. Here, I'll even like do this a little bit. Let's say this breaks like this. Oh no! This breaks. Boom! It's like falling down. Oh my God! What am I gonna do? I'm gonna no. Don't get so upset. Just go ahead, do some scratching in between. Scratching in between. Let's take this away real quick. Scratching in between. Not too much slip or water, because it'll just make it break again. Put it back together. Okay, and then scratch on the outside like you did before. Okay, scratch on the outside. And if there's a lot of scratch marks, and if you do this, it gets too thin, and grab some new clay, build it up a little bit, especially because if it got too thin anywhere, your clay's too thin, this is where it's going to break, right? Because your coils are too thin, the whole thickness is too thin, it couldn't support the weight, it's going to break. So then maybe just add a little bit more clay from the side. You add it into your score marks. And remember, when you need to, if you got to pay attention to everything. It's starting to sag, starting to fall. Put supports in, or else grab a hair dryer. While it's, or if you don't have a hair dryer, put the supports in. Just let it sit for a little bit, and let it dry a little bit in those areas. You can like selectively wrap some parts that don't need to dry, and have other parts exposed to dry. You just got to be careful, because if you let it dry too much, and I've seen it happen a million times, like maybe the bottom, for instance, will dry too quickly, because when you wrap it up, you just put a bag over the top like this, and it's not getting this very well. It'll still dry and it'll start breaking up, so you got to be very careful. You want to make sure when you wrap it up, you tuck it in really well. All right, let me just pause for a second. I could come back. I'm just going to try to clean it up a little bit. So I'm going around and I'm just using my finger. You can use your knife. You can use whatever tool you want. Whatever works best for you. A lot about ceramics is kind of your personal preference, the things that work well for you. But don't use water, because this whole thing will get too wet and collapse on you. The next part of the project is to, hey, look at here. See, because I'm trying to just like with the pinch project where it's trying to sag, so I'm pushing it up like this. Try to get it up. Look, a little bit of a crack right there. That's normal. Nothing to panic about. Go ahead, scratch that. Score that, I should say. Always say score. But rub a little bit of, because that was thin, because it broke away there, so I'll rub a little bit of fresh clay into the score marks to build that up right there. I'm not going to put slip or water there, because it's going to be too much. It's too wet already. Because the next step is doing the textures, and I'm going to want this to dry to leather hard for that. I mean, I could do the additive textures when it's this wet, but I'd prefer it at least to get close to leather hard. You don't want to do the subtractive textures when it's this wet for sure. So my project is like the rubric, just over 9 inches. So this is like perfect height, meaning it meets the exact requirements of the rubric, meaning that's what I pretty much guess is you'll need this much height to actually do this effect. Yours can be higher if you want. I just ask that you don't have it more than 12 inches, okay? Use too much clay at that point. But just keep an eye on it, smooth everything out, and just be very careful. You want to get all the smoothness in now before you start the textures, because craftsmanship is a big part of your grade. Refining everything, making it look good. And remember, all of these imperfections pop out like crazy after it completely dries and is fired. So you want to get it as perfect as you possibly can, like with a magnifying glass now. And just keep repositioning it. And as you're working on it, you'll help it dry out some. And just keep repositioning it. Keep letting it dry. You see how this piece ended up moving this way, then back this way and around? Well, it goes like this. See that? That's what I wanted to try to demonstrate. That movement. That's what I want you to try to demonstrate, that you can get some movement going around. Definitely have this coming away from each other. So, as you let this dry, well, you know, the bag's around here. Maybe I'll just take whatever this is out of here. As you let this dry, you want to be very careful you don't let it dry too much, or else you will have to start over. So, if you're going to be back at, to check on it in like an hour or so, just leave it out. Let it dry a little bit. If you're in a big hurry and you are in the same room, put a fan on it if you want, if you're in a big hurry to start your textures. Hair dryer only if you have to, because it can stress out the clay if it dries too quick. But keep, positioning it. If it rips, you go ahead and score. But remember, when you wrap it up, when it comes time, if you're going to be away from this, like at nighttime when you're sleeping, what have you, you're not going to pick this thing up and throw it in a bag. This is a very fragile thing. This is a shopping bag. It probably has holes in it. But since it's pretty wet anyway, I don't care. But just make sure, like I was talking about before, you have to get it around the bottom well, because that's what happens a lot, is the bottom of the project will dry out. So if this is like left on its own, it'll come like undone, and the bottom will dry out, and the rest of it will be wet. Just like put it down, put something on top of it, don't let it unwrap. So then you can start the textures afterwards, and I'll do that in the next video. I guess there's going to be a part 3. This one's a lot shorter than part 1, I guess. That's okay. Just go ahead, smooth it out really well. Oh yeah, when you're going to let it sit, put your supports back in there. Because like your pinch project, remember, and make sure you look under. Now you wouldn't normally want to do this if you don't have to. Look under. Oh, look at that. You have to make sure you're looking under things. If there's big cracks, you score it. I could have just got underneath, crouched, and looked, and that would have been better than picking it up, because I could have broken it. But I wanted the camera to see that. Oh look, right here, this is not attached here either very well. Because it was out of my eyesight, and since I'm on camera here, I'm not doing a lot of crouching and flopping about. So make sure you get that really well. And when you have it sitting, when you go away for a while, put in supports. Paper tubes work the best. Paper towels can flop away from it. But put in supports, that'll help it. Even like right in between here is a good idea. That's a good idea right there too. Put in those supports, okay? You can let it dry if you're going to walk away for a little bit. If you're going to be away for the night, you can go to bed or what have you. Go ahead and wrap it up like this. If it's super wet like mine, you can leave the newspaper under there. I'm not going to care too much about a shopping bag, which probably has holes in it. I'm going to weigh it down by something so it doesn't unwrap. If it's already, close to leather hard, I'll double back it. Okay? So now, the next video, demo 3 for the coils, is going to start the textures. All right.